Greetings and welcome to week 3 of COMM 110, Fundamentals of Public Speaking. In this introductory video this week, there are 3 things that I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to talk a little bit about the typical coursework that you're going to be having in the different weeks of the semester that you had for the first time last week, and just sort of review some things about that. I'm going to say a few words about the speaker critiques assignment that you received last week, and then I'm going to talk about a couple of the concepts that you had in last week's reading that are very central and very important to everything that we're going to be doing throughout the semester. So last week, in week 2, you had what is the first typical week that you'll have throughout the semester in terms of the coursework that you're going to be doing. You had 2 chapters of text reading from the book, which were accompanied by reading guides and audio lectures. You had the reading quizzes that you took, and you had the Talking About Speaking discussion forum. Let me say just a few words about each of these different types of coursework that you'll have on a weekly basis, most weeks. The reading guides you should use as you're reading the textbook. Each chapter will have its own reading guide, and you should use that reading guide while you're reading the chapter, looking for the terms and concepts that are on that reading guide and taking notes on them, sort of trying to learn them, commit them to memory as you're reading through the chapters. You shouldn't really sort of cherry pick those things out of the text chapter. You should still read the entire chapter so that you get the context that the ideas are being talked about in and so forth. But any of the terms and concepts that you do come across in the textbook that are not on the reading guide, you do not need to be responsible for and won't be responsible for knowing in the reading quiz or subsequently in the final exam that we'll have at the end of the semester. So again, terms and concepts that are not on the reading guides you don't have to worry about learning or knowing, but those that are on the reading guides, those terms and concepts are the ones that will potentially show up on those reading quizzes that you'll be taking on each chapter. There are audio lectures for each chapter as well, and those are a little bit outdated only in the respect that they're from the previous edition of the textbook. Most, if not all, of the concepts that I talk about in those audio lectures still apply and should still track with what you find in the chapters of this current edition of the text. The only thing that is a little odd or outdated is that there'll be maybe some page references. There are some page references in there that are from the previous edition that you should just kind of disregard as you're listening to those audio lectures now. And the audio lectures are almost sort of optional to listen to. It's up to you as to whether or not you want to go ahead and listen to the audio lectures. If you feel like you know the terms and concepts well enough and are confident in your knowledge of the terms and concepts just from your reading of the text chapter and using the reading guide in conjunction with the text chapter, you may not need to listen to the audio lectures. But if you feel like you need a little bit more reinforcement with the concepts from the chapter, then you probably should listen to the audio lectures. And those are in the form, the audio lectures are in the form, as you probably realized this past week, of little QuickTime movies that you'll have to open up, download and open up to listen to. The reading quizzes are relatively brief, 9 or 10 questions each, with each one of them having a short answer question of a few points at the end of it, following the true and false multiple choice questions. One point that I want to make, because I got a couple of calls about this, or emails about this, is that right after you take the quiz, it's going to show a score in the grade book and display a score right after you've submitted it that is going to be artificially low because that automatic score is not going to include the points for the short answer question. eCollege automatically grades or auto grades the multiple choice true false questions, but it doesn't do that to the short answer question. So a couple of days later, usually at the beginning of the following week, I grade the quizzes from the previous week, and at that time, after I've graded those, the accurate score for that quiz will appear in the grade book. So for a few days there may be scores that will be artificially low because they don't include that short answer question. And then finally, the talking about speaking discussion. I think everybody, with all of these things, the quizzes, the discussion, everybody seems to more or less have the hang of it, but just a couple points about the discussion is you want to make sure that you're providing enough substance in your initial posts in which you're answering those questions or addressing those topics in the discussion forum. One rule of thumb that I often say to people is that if your post that you're making responding to a discussion topic, if it's shorter and has less substance than the introductory text that I give for the discussion topic, then it's probably not substantive enough. And you may want to go and figure out a way to talk a little bit more about the topic, put a little bit more detail in that post. And whether or not your posts are substantive is the biggest part of what your scores on those discussion forums are going to be based on. The other thing is on whether or not you have responded to classmates' postings. You need to respond to at least one classmate's posting each week, and if you don't, you'll lose a few points there as well. Some weeks there are going to be just one discussion topic. Other weeks there are going, as this past week, there are going to be two discussion topics. And the way that the discussion forum is sort of laid out on eCollege, it can be easy to miss the fact that there are two discussion topics. And I'll usually say in the course plan on the weekly homepage whether or not there's just one topic or whether or not there's two topics. So watch out for that, and then when you're in the discussion forum, there's two little links there that show how many discussion topics there are as well. It'll either be one or two. There'll never be more than one. There'll never be more than two, and indeed some weeks we won't have any discussion like this week, depending on what the rest of our coursework is. So make sure that you're answering both of the discussion topics if we do in fact have two discussion topics on that particular week. Let me shift now and talk a little bit about the speaker critiques assignment. Hopefully you have read that. You should have read that set of guidelines already from last week's course plan. So I just want to highlight a couple of things from that. These are assignments where you are going to have to attend in person a speaking presentation of some form. And then while you're there, take notes, using the guidelines that I distributed last week. Take some notes on the speaker, write up those notes into a short paper of approximately 2 pages in length. You're going to be doing 4 of these speaker critiques over the course of the semester, and on the guidelines it has a list of the distribution of the due dates for those 4. The first one of them is going to be due on February 8th, so you probably want to begin scoping out what speaker you're going to attend. Of course, in an online class, people live in different cities and different areas, different towns, and so everybody's situation is going to be different as to what speaking presentations there are that are available for you to attend. One of your 4 critiques, just one of them, can be of a video speech. So in other words, a speaking presentation that you have located online. It could also be on television, but one that you watch in recorded form. and do the same thing that you would do to the live speakers. Use the guidelines for the critique and take notes on the presentation and then write that up into the short 2-page paper. You can only do one of those over the course of the semester though, so if you do your video speech or recorded speech for speaker critique number 1, that means for the remaining 3 you're going to have to attend in-person speaking presentations. And you don't have to do any video speeches or recorded speeches. You can, if you want to, do all 4 of the speaker critiques on actual speaking presentations that you attend in person. One of the things that is really important that I have noticed that students sometimes are not paying real close attention to is that you want to make sure that the speaking performance that you're attending actually is a public speaking presentation according to the definition of public speaking that we learned about this past week. And that definition, of course, is that public speaking occurs when there's one person who prepares and delivers a speech for a group that listens without interruption. So all of those little individual segments, which if you listen to the audio lecture, you got a little more detail on those last week. All of those have to apply to the particular presentation. So if there is one of those elements of the definition of public speaking that doesn't pertain to the particular performance, then that's not a public speaking presentation and will not be one that you could use for a speaker critique. If you have any questions about whether or not something that you're considering attending for the public speaking, for the speaker critique qualifies as a public speaking presentation, let me know and I will tell you whether or not it sounds like that actually is a public speaking presentation according to the definition that we're going by in our course this semester. The other thing and final thing about the speaker critiques is you want to make sure that you have got enough substance. Just like in those discussion postings, you want to make sure that your speaker critique paper has got enough substance in it. About 2 pages is the length, and if you've got 2 pages of text, you're probably fine. If you've got just 1 page of text, you probably haven't included enough detail about those items that are in the guidelines in the critique assignment. And sometimes people get into a little bit of trouble or get off base a little bit because they provide too much of a description of the content of the presentation and not enough analysis or actual critique of the style and how the person was in terms of a speaker. So you have a relatively small amount of the paper be related to the content, like one medium-sized paragraph at most, talking about the content of what the speaker spoke about, and the remainder of the paper should be focused on critiquing the speaker's delivery style, their performance aspects as a public speaker. The last thing that I want to talk about in this video is just to emphasize the importance of extemporaneous delivery in everything that we're going to be doing this semester in terms of the speeches that you're going to be giving. Now, we learned this past week in our chapters about the 4 different types of speaking delivery, which are extemporaneous delivery, manuscript delivery, memorized delivery, and impromptu delivery. Of those 4, all of the speeches that you're going to be doing for this class should be using extemporaneous delivery. Now, you learned a little bit about what that is. You're going to learn more about what extemporaneous delivery is in future chapters. And of course, you'll be doing it starting this week with the personal item speech, and did already with the introduction, speech of introduction as to what extemporaneous delivery is in practice. But the main thing and the most important thing that it is not a speech in which you are reading from a text that is written out word for word. In extemporaneous delivery, you should not be reading from a prepared text. You should be using notes, probably in the form of note cards like this, that have just keywords and phrases. Not complete sentences for the most part, but just keywords and phrases that are going to jog your memory as to what it is you want to say at each of the different parts of the speech that you are delivering. So use notes that include keywords and phrases, not a prepared text that is written out word for word. The second thing that's really important about extemporaneous speaking is that it is conversational in nature. Very much like what I'm doing now. I'm speaking conversationally to you, and the manner of your delivery and the tone of your delivery when you're speaking extemporaneously should be very close to what it's like when you are having a conversation with another person. So it shouldn't be stilted. It shouldn't be like you're reading or reciting something. It should be conversational in nature, and the exact words that you are saying should be ones that you're making up as you speak, just like we do when we're having conversations with people. When we are having a conversation with another person, we do not have a prepared script or rehearsed lines that we are working from. We are thinking of the words that we are going to say just as we're saying them, or a moment before we say them. And that should be the case with all of the speeches that you are giving in this class, guided, of course, by the notes that you have. And one of the results of that is that every time that you deliver that speech or that presentation, the wording in terms of what you actually say, the exact words that you say, is going to be a little different. And that's okay. You should, especially for the major speeches, be practicing your speeches a few times before you deliver them for real. And each time that you practice or deliver a speech, it's going to be a little bit different because you're thinking of the exact words as you're delivering the presentation. Just like we do, again, in normal conversation with other people. So that's a really key concept for everything that you're going to do in this class as far as the speeches you're going to be delivering. And so if you have any questions about anything in general, but especially about what extemporaneous speaking is, what the definition of public speaking is, about any of the details of the speaker critiques assignment, as well as any of the assignments that we're doing, or about any element of the coursework that we're doing from week to week, please let me know. I'm happy to answer questions by phone or by email. So if you have any questions about anything related to the course, do please let me know.